We're now going to move over to
Adesso ci sposteremo al prossimo oratore.
to Boston, to Sriman Nimai Caitanya Dasa, who I have to apologize to because on one of the promotions for today, I did call him Dasi, but that was a typographical error. I'm very sorry. I ask for his forgiveness. Nimai Caitanya is a very expert health practitioner who actually has a wonderful book and runs lots of cleansing programs for devotees. He became a devotee in 1982 and met Srila Gurudeva in 2002, took Harinam that same year and took Diksha the following year. He wrote to me about how beautiful it was to massage Gurudev's feet. I probably could have got that service. I was just worried that I would mess it up, so I never actually did that service. So I wasn't brave enough. But he also took care of Gurudev's health and takes care of a lot of devotees' health. He's very expert. So Prabhu, I'm very happy to introduce you again, and please share your heart and a big warm welcome from me and from everybody listening to you today. Hari Bol, Dandavats.
Hari Bol, Dandavats. Thank you. Let's start. Gurave Gaura Chandraya Radhikaya Tadavaya Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namo. Namo Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Yatmane Shri Srimad Bhakti-Vedanta Narayana Namine. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimad Bhakti-Vedanta Swami. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Charini Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Paschatadesha Tarni. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasana Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Vanchakalpa Trubhascha Kripa Sindhubhevcha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Jai Hari Bol. Thank you, Sodananda Prabhu. Yes, that was funny to see Nimai Caitanya Dasi. And I thought hopefully you were making some kind of prediction for the very distant future. So, thanks so much for this beautiful opportunity. So I was just thinking, I mean, this is such a nice opportunity to, like you said, to share memories, which are sort of remembrances or reconnecting to the eternal connection with Sri Guru. So a couple things. I was a big meditator before I came to Krishna consciousness, fraught with all kinds of issues and anxieties, but I discovered meditation in my early teens and had some powerful realizations, but I always came to the conclusion, it was like I got so much, but the tip of the triangle, the information was always lacking. And because even the person who I accepted as my guru at the time was Yogananda. And I always wondered, well, am I God? Am I not God? Because sometimes he talked that like we are one with everything. And then sometimes talked as if we were an individual. So it was always some confusion. And I remember always praying about that. And then there's something in the background. Maybe it might be the bird.
Sorry, just bear with me then. And then my son, sorry about this. No, Shamasundari is muted. Everyone's muted. Oh, no, I found it. Okay.
Thank you, Prabhu. Sorry, Sham, it wasn't the bird.
It wasn't the bird. No. We'll feature the bird later. Cheeky.
We'll have the bird later. We love the bird. But anyway, so then I remember being in France and at the temple in Ermenonville and reading, and it just clicked finally that Krishna consciousness was that tip that I'd been looking for, and everything I was looking for was in that, and that bhakti and devotion was the my understanding it occurred is the supreme path for the living entity. And so I ended up getting initiated in ISKCON. And during my initiation, there was a time when It was very a turbulent time. And I remember praying at the fire sacrifice, somehow or other, Lord, please keep me in your service, because I intuitively felt something heavy was coming down. I just had a feeling. And the Lord Caitanya, because I was in Mayapur and I felt especially protected there. And I thought, you know, just somehow or other, no matter what happens, please keep me in your service. And sure enough, there was lots of drama that occurred. And fortunately, years later, a dear friend of mine her name's Radha Sundari. She's in Detroit, and she's a yantra reader. She's a Vedic oracle reader, very interesting person. And she encouraged me to go meet Srila Bhakti-Tirtha Swami, and I spent some wonderful time with him. And he gave me so much nourishment and support. I was able to reveal everything to him, so many things. And I remember in 1992, there was a fire sacrifice at Gita Nagari that I participated in. And I just thought of this yesterday, and I thought, wow, this was a foreshadowing that I had no idea that was connected. And while he was speaking, he said very boldly, there's something really wrong. He said, there's a pure devotee down the street, and he's not allowed to come here and speak to all of you. And I was like, well, who is this pure devotee? And it was Srila Gurudev. He was traveling, and so Gurudev came on the property the day before. They allowed him to see the property, to go into the temple, but they didn't allow him to speak to the devotees. And I remember that day, I'm like, who is that person? And I found out, oh, it was Srila Narayana Maharaj. And it was like a seed was planted. I didn't even know it then. And it just occurred to me literally yesterday. I remember that memory many times, but I never made the connection that something was planted in my heart, because Bhakti-Tirtha Swami said very boldly to the whole community, there's something really wrong. There's a pure devotee, and I'm not allowed to have him here and speak to you. So that told me two things. One thing, something.
Where was that, Prabhu?
That was at Gita Nagari.
Where's that?
Gita Nagari in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Yeah. So it told me something about who Srila Gurudev really is, and also something about Bhakti-Tirtha Swami, also what his mood was, and his understanding and his appreciation. Later, when I would talk to Bhakti-Tirtha Swami, we wrote many letters, and it was kind of funny looking back. I was speculating on, is Srila Narayana Maharaj really a pure devotee? Because I wanted to go see him, and he said, yes, he is. I think he is a pure devotee, and he basically was telling me it will be problematic if we share this information all over the world. I will get in trouble. So he asked me, please don't share that at the time. But, and I understood that. But so that was a conversation. And then meanwhile, Prabhu from New York, I had connected with him, and he kept sending me literature and books and audios. And I was listening and reading. Most of it was going completely over my head. But still, I was knowing there's something here, there's something here. And then one fine day in 2002, Srila Gurudev went to New Jersey at a event in New Jersey. And I remember thinking, oh, I should go. And then I'm thinking, oh, I shouldn't go, because I've been told for so many years, don't go see Srila Narayana Maharaj. And then I thought, okay, I'm not hooked in this institution anymore. And why would I listen to an institution that, has in many ways derailed in many ways? I'm not saying anything about the institution now. That's not my place or purpose. But at the time, there were so many things. And why would I listen to that? So immediately I went. It was a 4-hour drive. And I got there, and Shamarani was giving a class. And she was speaking about how Srila Gurudev had taught her to chant. And sometimes she was describing that she would read a verse and then chant for a while, and then read a verse and then chant a while. And I'd never even heard anything like that. And I thought, oh, this is not correct, from what I heard. And then, but I kept hearing and chanting, and the energy and the mood was so sweet and so beautiful. And then I met Srila Gurudev. What was really fortunate is that I knew Brajanath Prabhu from Belgium, because I'd lived in Europe in the Bhagavan Prabhu's zone at the time. So I knew Brajanath, and we had written a few letters, and he brought me into the room with one other devotee. It was like 3 people in there. And Srila Gurudev was sitting there, and I was just, of course, struck by his intensity and his piercing blue eyes. And he was looking very, very sober. And he said to me, first thing he said, right into my heart, he says, "You have done some things, no harm." So I was like, whoa, okay, he's seeing right through me, like, no doubt about that. Clears that one. Does this guru know what's actually in the heart? He's got that already, so no doubt about that one. And then he said, on the other hand, he said, "I know you want what Prabhupada has come to give, and I will give you everything." So on the one hand, it was very paradoxical. On the one hand, he's saying, "I'm seeing everything in you, all of your faults, all of your weaknesses, all of your doubts." But on the other hand, he's saying, "I will give you everything," which was so confidence building. Like, I see who you are in your fallen nature, but I can give you everything. I can give you the potential, and you can receive it. And both in the same 10 seconds. It was very powerful and almost confusing and overwhelming, but it was very beautiful and very powerful. So that was the first time I met Srila Gurudev, and I remember staying for all 4 days and driving home and chanting, and all of a sudden it was like I reawoke my Krishna consciousness. Over the years, when I'd left ISKCON and my time with Bhakti Tirtha Swami, I'd always chanted, but it was somewhat inconsistent. I don't think I missed a day really of chanting, but sometimes it was 1 round, sometimes it was 4 rounds, sometimes it was 16 rounds, sometimes it was more. But it wasn't, it wasn't steady. I felt like I was hanging on by a thread, really. And then when I met Srila Gurudev, everything started coming into place again. It was like everything started making sense. And all the understandings that I thought I understood about, well, all the things that I actually did have some understanding about Krishna consciousness, I had so many doubts about, started becoming clear. And all the things that I had misunderstandings about or misconceptions due to my own faults, my own misgivings, and also due to institutional emphases that overemphasized certain things and underemphasized other teachings, those all started making sense. So everything started becoming very clear. And I became so inspired and just started reading, sort of drinking the books up and reading. And every festival that I could get to in America, which is usually only 1 or 2 festivals a year, I would go to, and I would often write Srila Gurudev letters and get answers, which was really wonderful. And then the next one, I believe, was in, I went to Houston and then to Florida, might have been Badger. I'm not really recollecting. It was actually in Houston, the first time I was able to massage Srila Gurudev. The first time that I remember actually speaking with him. I think I did it once in Florida also. But anyway, so we're there, and then I came in the room and Brajanath brought me in. Actually, even in 2002, I did a little bit. Brajanath brought me in the room. That was really helpful. I mean, that was merciful of the Vaishnavas, because on my own, I would have been completely terrified to, like you, Yashodanandan Prabhu, to do that. But because I had done it professionally, and Brajanath just brought me in, and I started doing it. But that one day in Houston, I was massaging Srila Gurudev's arm, and he looked up at me with those big blue eyes, and he said, "Oh, a master," like that. And it was I usually don't even tell that story because I know he didn't really, I was a master of nothing else except for maybe massaging a little bit because I've been doing it for a long time. But it was so sweet how Gurudev was very, his eyes opened up and he looked at me and he said, "Oh, master." It was very beautiful. And of course, I felt very proud and very fortunate to be massaging Srila Gurudev at that time. One pastime, and then we'll go to something in Badger again, where I think I told this before, but Srila Gurudev was giving a talk, and you know, when an old ISKCON senior would come to see Srila Gurudev, he was always very respectful, even if that personality had had fall downs or issues. He was always, as we know, one of his missions was to rejuvenate the you know, those devotees who had become disillusioned or lost heart or had fallen away. I mean, that was my understanding was one of his first missions, was to do that for Srila Prabhupada's disciples. And sure enough, this one ex-guru in ISKCON was there who was extremely controversial. And Gurudev asked him to speak. And this was like in maybe 2003. It was early. And I was a little doubtful, like, oh no, why is he allowing him to speak? This person is so controversial. This is dangerous. And I even had a little doubt in my mind because, you know, as we know, sometimes groups can become personality cults. And I was just hoping, I hope this doesn't become that. And, you know, being the limited jiva that I am, thinking like that. And then so he let him speak, and he spoke very basic katha about surrendering. And I could tell as he was speaking, or I thought that he was thinking he was speaking the highest philosophy, speaking very elevated Krishna conscious philosophy. And I'm still wondering, like, how is Gurudev going to react? Because normally after someone spoke, he'd clap or he'd say some nice things if the person spoke well. So Gurudev, afterwards, he clapped very, very cordially. And, you know, there was some claps and not so many claps, because there was, even in the audience, there were some people that were quite opposed to this person. But then Gurudev says, very boldly, he looked out at the whole audience with intensity, with his sort of very, very intensely. He said, what he has said, you know, just almost ignoring as if he's there. What he has said is only the beginning of Krishna consciousness. And all of a sudden, my heart became completely at ease. And I said, this is my father, my true father. He fully protected us. He knows how to give us shelter. He taught us Vaishnav etiquette. He taught everything in that one little moment. And he also taught, you know, that there's so much more. I mean, of course, we all have to surrender. And it's not that we, you know, can jump over that. But to think that that's all what Krishna consciousness is. Gurudev just, in a second, said, you know, we have so much further to go than that. And he put him in his place very respectfully, very appropriately, and protected all of his disciples and made it very clear. It was amazing. I was so grateful for that moment. And it also told me I don't have to worry for a second about this becoming a personality cult with Srila Gurudev. And, you know, this being a place where people over glorify somebody who's not qualified to be glorified, because that's a real problem in the material world, as we've seen. So with Srila Gurudev, that was not a problem. Even if there were people that didn't know Gurudev and glorified him more than they were aware of, still we know that Gurudev was so far beyond that personality cult phenomena that it didn't matter. So then in Badger, I remember Chutananda Prabhu and a few other people were saying, yes, come Nimai, you should come massage Srila Gurudev. And it was the little house in Badger. And it became such a beautiful thing, because every time I went to Badger or Houston or Florida, I would always get to go, and I would experience those times as most sacred and wonderful. and Srila Gurudev would come out of that back sliding door, and he would come out in his gamcha, and he would slowly get on the massage table. And generally speaking, he would start face down. And, there was usually 3, 4, sometimes more people would come. And at that time, I think Madhava Maharaj was trying to wean it down a little bit, because Srila Gurudev, they wanted to do what was best for Srila Gurudev also, not just have, 20 people in there taking a part of the body. So sometimes there were a lot of people and sometimes there weren't so many people. And then, it's such a wonderful meditation, really, where, and I really say this humbly because I feel completely unqualified to be in there with Srila Gurudev. There were so many more qualified Vaishnavas that were in that room, and somehow or other, Gurudev gave me that mercy, and Brajanath Prabhu and other devotees encouraged me and to do that service. I was in with Gurudev in 2002, where many of those devotees knew Gurudev when there was just a few devotees or just a small handful. It was very intimate. I know Yashodananda Prabhu, you had some very, times with Srila Gurudev that were, not with so many people. So many devotees have that experience. And having said that, in some ways it doesn't matter. We've seen many devotees who have so much devotion and to Srila Gurudev, even if they've only met him one time. So, but having said that, I certainly needed that one-on-one time, or not one-on-one time, that time of intimacy. And, sometimes I can meditate on, his furry eyebrows and even his face and the sensation of his beard and his hair and his sika and his holding, even as I'm talking now, remembering as I'm holding my hands under his head, and just the sensation of his beautiful arms and legs and back and chest, and everything was transcendental, really. And just the, because being at some point a massage therapist, I don't do so much massage now, it's more acupuncture, other services, but herbs and nutrition. But I felt like all the, it's like it was the perfection of that service. So everything I learned, it was like, well, thank you. I'm actually using it in its perfected form right now on serving the Vaishnava. So I tried to use my skills and everything I had while doing that. And I remember one time I was holding his head, and Srila Gurudev got very quiet. Sometimes he would talk during massage, sometimes he would be quiet. He got very quiet and very, very internal. And it was everybody got very quiet. Like I said, sometimes people would jabber a bit and communicate, and Gurudev didn't seem to mind that at all. Although he would joke sometimes, he would say, talking, or, he would sort of joke with somebody about talking too much. But at that moment, everything got very silent. And that was one of those moments where Srila Gurudev just kind of looked up very briefly and caught my eye. And I still remember that glance. And so thank you for the opportunity right now to be sharing that, because that is something that I hold very dear and would only share with assembled glorifiers of Srila Gurudev, not to disperse anything from the heart, but that is a sacred moment. And it was so penetrating and so real and so powerful that in that instant, I knew he was from the transcendental realm, for sure. And so, like I've mentioned before, his body was transcendental. After working with many people over the years, people's blocks and their nadis are blocked and their emotions are blocked, and so much stress in the body and anxiety. And, as we may know, the different organs hold all the different emotional issues. Liver holds anger, lungs hold grief, kidneys hold fear. Working with Gurudev, it just seemed like there was none of that. I never, because it's like when I'm working with people, it's like my hands know something. I may not know, but my hands know. With Srila Gurudev, there was nothing. It was like working with, pure liquid energy. There was no resistance whatsoever. He had muscle tone. It wasn't like that, but there was no resistance. There was no energetic resistance. And I remember being struck by the difference between the transcendental body of the devotee versus, an ordinary living entity. So that was really, really, really special, a really striking experience. How much time do I have, Prabhu? Just so I can have a heads up.
You're doing well on time, Prabhu. You've got another 6.5 minutes.
Okay, great, thank you. So then one really special time was going to Ojai after the 2010 Badger Festival, which was a very, very intense festival because Srila Gurudev mentioned there that he would not be coming back. And that was, shocking for all of us and concerning for all of us. And we, hoped it didn't mean what we thought it meant. But I mean, we hoped it just meant that, okay, he's, he can be in India for some time, but not maybe for many years, but not travel, which was understandable. But some of us were concerned, and people were beginning to ask him what to do when you leave. And I remember him saying, what do we do when you leave? And he said, weep and weep. And it was like, whoa. So weep and weep. And then someone asked him also, this is my recollection, maybe something off, hopefully not, but I remember him saying, will there be others after you? And he said, yes, there will be millions. So Gurudev also clearly, on the one hand, Gurudev knew that the mission he came to give us was monumental and pivotal for our devotional community, for all devotional communities on the planet, because he explained that if he did not give what he gave, then everything would be lost. All the essential teachings of Rupa Goswami, all the essential teachings about the gopis and the manjaris, all the deep teachings of the 10th canto, everything would be lost if he didn't emphasize what he emphasized. And that's on the one hand. On the other hand, he didn't say, I'm the only one, I'm the last one on the line. He was extremely humble in that way, saying, yes, there will be others after me. Maybe not like him, but there will be others. There's always the pure devotees on the planet. So he assured that, but he told us to weep and weep. So then, Ojai, our dear friends, Brajesh and Krishna Bhamani were housing them and housing Srila Gurudev in Ojai to recover, to do some healing, because his health was waning at the time. And Brajesh bought this special energy mat for $2,000, and Gurudev was on that every day, and we did massage every day, and we went for very intimate walks, and Shamarupa Prabhu was there, my friend from Boston. He came with me. It was so special he was there because he never formally took any type of initiation with Srila Gurudev, but fully accepts him in his heart as Shiksha Guru. And his presence there was very special as well. And so, Gurudev answered questions every day. And then people, Krishna Bhamani's friends who lived in Ojai, who weren't devotees, but were like yogis and healers and teachers, and they would all come. And Gurudev was so grave and so heavy with them. I mean, he was beginning the end of his pastimes, and he was very heavy, telling each and every time, no matter who it was, about the meat thing. Me eat. If you eat meat, the animal will then come eat you. I mean, he was very, very, very straightforward, not holding anything back. And then those mornings he would sit on they had like a chair that would swing in the back, and he would just sit there very quietly chanting, and we would just sit around him, and he would, be very quiet, and then people would ask a question. But the scene was very beautiful. The mood was like so loving and beautiful, but it was also very grave. And I remember those morning walks were very, very special with Srila Gurudev. And then, of course, we went to Delhi, and I mentioned last time the time when I was doing acupuncture for Srila Gurudev, which he did not like acupuncture very much, but because his blood pressure was becoming very fluctuating. And I remember it was like a thunderbolt to my heart. He said, "What are you doing in here?" I said, "I'm trying to help you, Srila Gurudev." And he just kind of said, "You cannot help me." And at that moment is when he said to Brajanath Prabhu, "I want to go to Govardhan," which was again a tumultuous moment, because that meant in our understanding that he's choosing to leave his body. So we went to Govardhan, and so many things occurred there, as many of you know. But it was, these incredibly heart-wrenching, beautiful pastimes of Srila Gurudev. And then I know that, time to time when doing sadhana and bhajan, really getting that Srila Gurudev is most pleased when we are accepting what he has come to give us. He wants us to go to higher stages of bhakti. He wants us to appreciate bhakti ras. He wants us to go beyond, in our own time, the understanding that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he wants us to enter into the divine realms of Braj. So it's very auspicious today that it's before the Janmashtami, the appearance of Lord Krishna, and then Nandotsava, the birth of Lord Krishna, or the appearance of Lord Krishna in Braj, and Srila Prabhupada's appearance day. And Srila Gurudev has really come to give the highest thing, Manjari Bhav, to his disciples. And we know that he is also a Manjari. And there's some beautiful pastimes about that too. So I think I'll end it there, but I'm always praying to the dust of the lotus feet of the Vaishnavas that I can actually remember and meditate on and focus on that gift which Srila Gurudev has come to give. And that, receiving that gift from him, I believe and know that gives him the most pleasure. Thank you. Vanchakalpa Trivascha Kripa Sindhuvevacha Patitanam Pavani Vaishnavebhyo Namo.
Beautiful. I've got so many notes from that, Prabhu. By the way, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, was he the black one?
Yes.
Yeah, he's fantastic. He's very special.
Incredible. Yep.
Absolutely beautiful. I was going to make a joke, but are both your parents Jewish, like me? Yeah. So I think there needs to be a new part of Judaism where every Jewish person born knows how to meditate to de-stress from being Jewish.
Totally, Prabhu, totally.
So stressful being Jewish family. It's hilarious. Only a Jewish person could fully understand what I just said.
Absolutely.
But I loved what you were saying about the tip of the triangle and Yogananda. It was funny actually, because I didn't come to Krishna consciousness via Yogananda, but I happened to get the Yogananda autobiography of a yogi at the same time as I became Krishna conscious. So I actually read it at the beginning alongside the Krishna book. I was reading that and the Yogananda book.
Wow,
I'm into the Vrindavan bit of the Yogananda book, and I just loved him. I just thought he was wonderful. And he's kind of exponent of Kriya Yoga, so which is a pathway to get from the impersonal to the personal. So that was actually quite perfect for you, indeed.
Yeah. Interesting. Yes.
Yeah, and I love what you said about. I underlined because sometimes when you're listening to these sharings, you may bring a comment from your perspective, but it happens to be very relevant for someone else's perspective, but in a different context. So when you said about keep me in your service, you said, and I was thinking, yeah, that's a really, really good prayer, because like you were thinking at the time, ISKCON was going through a lot of tribulations. You anticipated that. So it was kind of a rough sea, and you were basically saying, listen, I want to keep in the boat of Krishna consciousness, however rough it gets. And I'm thinking, oh, for me, 2021's been a year of wonderful opportunity to serve, but we should never take any service for granted. I look at people sometimes, I think, oh, I wish you were doing more savor. You're beautiful. You have so much to offer. And they're not serving. But of course, that's their own thing. You can't compel or coerce anyone to do any savor. But when people have savor, hold on to it, because that's the pathway to intimacy with the Vaishnavas. It's everything. So I thought that was really, really beautiful. You mentioned that and was quite pertinent to me. And I loved what you said about That was brilliant. I was there in the room. I think you said it was in Badger. I know the actual room. I know the whole setting. You've done some things, you said. That's brilliant. But I will give you, you said something, I will give you everything. You were sincere. You're sincere in what Prabhupada came to give, and I will give you everything. And I love that, because anything that stresses the continuity between Srila Prabhupada and Srila Gurudev, for me, captures the essence of everything there is to think about and do in Krishna consciousness. Like Gurudev taught us, I remember when I was in Badger at the first festival, when everybody was quite, well, there was a third of the room that was against, that was antagonistic to Gurudev, a third that was neutral, and a third that was pro. And I saw how the room all changed, and how everyone became pro Gurudev. But what was magnetic and wonderful, and remember, I didn't come from an ISKCON background, so I wasn't steeped in Prabhupada, but I really loved Prabhupada, and still do, is I saw how not only how close Gurudev is to Prabhupada, but how close he always emphasized he is to Prabhupada. He's like, that was part of his entire proposition. I've come to bring you Prabhupada again, and not bring you more, because he wasn't more than Prabhupada, but he was able to bring and emphasize things that Prabhupada couldn't emphasize at the time he was on the planet. What else have I got here? There was so many things you said that were wonderful. Oh yeah, gone away, Guru glorify. Oh yeah. I noticed, yeah, that interaction where you were relieved that it wasn't some personality cult. I mean, quite frankly, you could glorify Gurudev all day, and it was quite safe to do so. But I also noticed that it was the same place I first noticed it in Badger, that any glorification he received, he was immediately giving it to his guru. I could see that. No, he didn't take. He wasn't like, I sometimes think, oh, if somebody says, oh, well done for doing such and such seva, Yashodanandan. I know I'm a thief. I know even if I don't want to take 1% for myself, I will. But I know that with Srila Gurudev, he was incapable of thieving any glory for himself. And that's why he was totally safe as guru. And his glances, oh my God, yeah. His glances, I've received glances in his physical presence and also in dreams. He glances at you in dreams as well. It just you sped through it. This has nothing to do with the bhakti part, but you said about organs in the lungs, and then you said in the kidneys, and then you said, what were the different emotions? That was very interesting.
The liver, fear, the liver, anger, kidneys, fear, lungs, grief, spleen, worry, and what else is there? Did I forget?
I think there's an English expression about spleen, like you're busting my spleen. That's worry. That's really interesting. And I'd never heard that he said there will be millions. He said that those words, there will be millions. Wow.
I remember that in the morning walk.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Yes, because yes, you cannot understand Gurudev without understanding Prabhupada, and you can't understand Prabhupada without understanding Gurudev. It's like Gaunitai, Radha Krishna. It's like it's that moiety almost that's present within a lot of Krishna consciousness. So it was totally delicious. Thank you, Prabhu. And give my dandavats to your son.
Oh, I will.
Yeah.